2, 1. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation GFBF Talks. And we've been coming together to try to create some touch points for people. We understand this virus has folks kind of in one place, got us kind of separated, and it's got us all in a different place, I would say. This is something very different than any of us have experienced, and very different than any of us probably even imagine. So I want to thank you guys very much for taking the time and energy to be on here this evening. And just for our listeners out there, I want to make it clear that this is not a self-help show. This is not going to be a presentation to give you some steps to how to deal with whatever you're dealing with. We are a group of friends who have come together, and we have a very unique collection of folks here who are the spouses of firefighters. We see firefighters on the news and we hear a lot about what they're doing, and sometimes the spouses and the families get lost in that conversation or in that consideration, because these guys are out there putting themselves on the front line, but they got to go home. And what happens when they go home? And I think this is a good opportunity to have the spouses of firefighters on here. And I'm not discounting the importance of firefighters, but I just want to acknowledge that there's a whole nother piece to that. I can't commend you guys enough. And people having a lot of time to think about things, you know, with this COVID-19 pandemic, I call it an alien monster that's descended upon the world and got people in a very different place. But before I have you guys introduce yourselves, I just want to make it very clear, that we're not here to fix anyone. This presentation and this time and this conversation is not intended to fix anyone. What it's intended to do is to maybe encourage someone who's listening, and maybe something that's shared in this conversation will resonate with someone, just to let you know that you're not alone in how you're feeling. And it's not just for the people listening in, but it's for us as well. Because believe me, every one of these conversations we've had, I've gotten so much out of it, and I just saw and got me out, which were the firefighters. And as a kid, I couldn't understand why these strangers would do that. I knew what firefighters did, but it became real one day when I found myself needing those guys. And I never thanked them for what they do, but vicariously, I can thank you guys, because you guys support firefighters to do what they do. And because of what they do, they make a difference in people's lives every day. And I can say that because they made a difference in my life. You know, they got me out of the house and got me to a hospital to get help. You know, they kept our house from burning down, because I don't know where a family of 9 kids would go if they're homeless. But more than anything else, it's because of the support you guys give firefighters. It's because of that my parents didn't have to bury one of their kids. And I could never say thank you enough. And I share that with you because I can imagine it's difficult, you know, when your spouses leave home and when that bell goes off and you wonder, are they coming back? But they do make a difference, and they made a difference in my life. And I just wanted to share that with you as we move into this, because I just want to express how important this is for me, not just to be on this call with you, but to have an opportunity to say thank you. So I'll get off my soapbox. And not just firefighters, but all first responders. There are a lot of people on the front lines. There's firefighters, there's nurses, there's doctors, there are police, there are a lot of people on the front line who are there, who don't really have much choice, but they can choose to do it or not. So, but because of the population that we're intimately involved with, we're going to focus on firefighters today and their spouses. So with that, I'm going to pass it off and have you guys to introduce yourselves to our worldwide audience. And whoever wants to start can start. Mackenzie?
Oh, okay. That was a voluntold. Um,
Hmm.
my name is Mackenzie Williams. I work at the Burn Foundation, as Dennis shared earlier with our programs. I also am happily married to Captain Jason Williams with Cherokee County Fire. We've been married, it'll be 5 years. Believe it or not, it's been 5 years. It feels like no time at all and a million years. But so yeah, we actually met through the Burn Foundation. So we kind of have one of those camp stories. We were both volunteering at camp, and that's how we met. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Okay. Great. Greg, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay, I thought you
There
said.
we go.
All right. Yeah. Hi, my name is Gregory Washington, and I'm married to Tony Washington, the fire chief of City of Decatur. Personally, myself, I'm a veteran. I did 22 years in the Navy, retired from the Navy in 2006. Tony and I are high school sweethearts, and
Oh, wow.
went out separate ways after high school, and then we rekindled that relationship years later. And I'm just very supportive of her career, and as she has been supportive of me in my career. And I'm the guy that shows up in the fire station. Everybody point out and say, that's the fire chief's husband. I get used to that everywhere I go. I try to travel with her when I can because our schedules sometimes conflict. But I'm a very big supporter of the fire service in general.
Okay.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Andrea Gore. I'm from Miami. Well, I'm in Miami now. And I'm married to Ronald Jean. He's a firefighter for Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. We've been married for 5 months, but we've been together for 9 years. So this has been a journey. He didn't start off as a firefighter, so we went through the process together when he went through academy and he was studying. So I'm just very supportive of him, and I'm enjoying this journey.
Great. Let's go with let's grab someone. Natalie, how about you?
Okay, well, I'm Natalie Key. I'm married to Tim Key. He also works for the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, and he also is a lieutenant with the City of Cartersville Fire Department. We have been married 25 years, so I guess I'm the old one in the group. We have 3 children. We have a 17-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 12-year-old. Tim also was not a firefighter when we married, but his father was a firefighter, my father was a firefighter, and my uncle was a firefighter. So I kind of grew up in the family of being a fireman's child. So it wasn't new to me when he joined the fire service. But we have been doing this now for quite a while in the fire service, but I'm glad can be here today.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for that. In everyone's introductions, you talked about the love you have for your spouse, and how, if I could ask, I can imagine there's some anxiety to them being firefighters. There's some anxiety for them leaving home, and just if someone wants to share, what's that like for you? What's that been like for you?
I will share. My husband Jason was injured in the line of duty in 2010. He was had a burn injury in a house fire, and so that's actually the way that we met, was because he found the Burn Foundation through that injury. He hadn't been connected, so it's kind of one of those. I think for us and for me, it's definitely bittersweet. He wouldn't have, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I believe that we would have met, but I'm not, that was the way that we met, was through something, really terrible and horrific that happened. And so I think it didn't become really real to me, I think, about him being injured at work until we have a 9-week-old newborn. And so I think I always worried about him and had like some background anxiety about him being injured. But I think for me personally, it's just a whole different level with us having, a baby now. And, we talk a lot about when different firefighters, die in the line of duty or injured in the line of duty. We talk a lot about that just between ourselves and, different things that happen. Cherokee County recently had somebody that had worked for them who had moved on somewhere else, but was very much a part of their community still, who unfortunately died in the line of duty. And so We talked a lot about that. And so I think for me, having a child, it's just kind of a different level of concern that I have. And, you know, before when it was just us, it's not that I wasn't concerned, but it was just us. And now we have this other tiny little human to take care of. And I think especially with this virus going on, just the concern that he might bring it home to us, you know, and like we are fortunate to work remotely, but he can't work, you know, like you can't work remotely to run, you know, medical calls or to go to a fire. You have to physically go there. So it would be like so great if they could have little teledocs that just went out and did all that, but we're not there in our world, or drones. But I think for me personally, that is something that, you know, and I know it's something that's heavy on him as well, about being concerned about bringing that home, you know, to our baby and to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see the other moms shaking their heads as you were talking. What are your thoughts on that, ladies?
That's very similar for me. It was also an adjustment getting used to him being gone for 24 hours. So just being at the house with the kids by myself, I get a little anxiety from that. But then also worrying about when he's out there, what he's going to be exposed to. And then I've been trying to make sure when he comes home that we talk about the different cases, because I did research when I was in school on firefighters, because I found out that's what he wanted to do. And I saw a lot of high rates for divorce, and for a lot of firemen that deal with PTSD, but they use humor, or they don't really deal with it. So that was something that really worried me, you know. But just him going out into the world, coming home when he had with the whole coronavirus, and I'm trying to create some type of routine for him, like, no, take your clothes off in the garage, and he's not feeling welcomed when he comes home because I don't let the kids see him till he takes a shower. So it was like we kind of had to get over that hurdle when it first started, and now we have a routine. But it's definitely some anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Does it seem fair to you, having this profession, and now there's this other layer added on top of it? Does it seem unfair to you, Andrew?
It's hard because I know he made a commitment. And I know he's very passionate about what he does. It doesn't feel fair that he has to risk himself to, you know, be exposed to this virus. But at the same time, you know, he made a pledge that that's what he's going to do. And I think he takes pride in that. So.
Natalie, as the wife, you didn't take the pledge, or did you?
Well,
you know, as spouses, do you take the pledge as well?
Yeah, in a way, you do take the pledge yourself. The COVID, though, is just something you really never really, you know, it's there, you know, communicable disease is there, but you really didn't sign up for something as strict and as contagious, I guess, is what they're saying that COVID is at this point. You know your husband's going out, but it's really not something that you signed up for, or even that they signed up for. They know they're going to be dealing with blood and disease, but this is mask and hazmat and shoes and every part of their body. It's just like Andrea said, you know, you have to have a protocol in place when they come home. To make sure that they're not bringing it into the home. You don't want it in your house. But as far as it being something you sign up for, you're happy that your husband's brave enough to do it. Because we are at the point where Tim is close to retirement. It's just a new thing that we're having to deal with on a daily basis that we didn't think we'd have to deal with. But we see all of us, I think every one of on the panel is saying we are managing. It's a new normal. It's a new way of living, but we are managing. And
when you say that, what do you mean? I see everybody shaking their heads, but when you say you're managing it, what does that mean, really?
Well, just like the protocols with coming in, you spray their phones down, you spray their keys down, you make them take their clothes off in a different place than what they normally take their clothes off. Everything's laundered. At my house is laundered different. I launder his clothes different than I launder mine and the kids' clothes. He showers every time he comes in the house. So that makes it a little bit different than what it has been in the past, because it's normally he could just come in, but now it's, well, have you washed your hands? Have you washed your phone? Have you washed your wallet? Have you washed your keys? Have you taken your shoes off or your shoes outside? It is different now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. And it's kind of like what it sounds like. You guys run the house. And having said that, I'd like to ask Greg, as the man of the house, how has that impacted you guys, Greg, in your household?
Well, listen, in my household, it's just nonstop because when Tony comes home, she's still working, and she's not on shift anymore. She's not riding the back of the truck anymore, but she has the responsibility of all of these firefighters. And so anything that happened to any one of them, it's like it happened to her, because she takes on the responsibility and care and concern about if something happened to one of them, all of us are affected. So our phone is constantly ringing off the hook. There's many, many phone calls 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because as the fire chief of the city of Decatur, Tony is also the emergency manager. So anytime anybody's coming in contact with COVID-19, whether it's a police officer, employee for the city of Decatur, or a firefighter, our phone is ringing for that and going through all the hoops about how we can protect the persons, the first responders, and it is a lot. Okay, so what we try to do is keep a balance. So every night, Tony and I make sure we have dinner together. Every night we talk about what's going on. Every night we go downstairs and exercise together, because we try to keep a routine here, even though in the midst of all that's going around us, because we are in uncertain times and we have to get used to what our new normals are. Masks and gloves, that's just going to be the way it is.
You're muted, Dennis.
I'm trying to do what I do. In the midst of all this new normal, these lifestyles, do especially like what you're saying, Greg, but all the stuff that is nonstop, do you feel slighted? Do you feel like now you're not number one, that you're kind of like being jealous, I guess, that someone else is getting all the attention?
Well, no, there's definitely days where I feel like her job, her career, what she does, what she signed up for, is coming before our household. And we have those conversations. I mean, that's honest. That's from a person that's at the top. Like, hey, I know you have a responsibility, but you also have a husband, you have a household. Fortunately for us, our kids are grown. So when she come home, it's just us. So when she's not here, there's a big void. I'm in a big house by myself, and this house doesn't mean anything unless both of us are in it. And so we have those conversations, and sometimes I do feel like I have to take a back seat. But I understand the commitment that she's made, and understand that she doesn't control what's happening in the world, but she's responsible for her response. So I just try to be as supportive as possible. And when we have downtime, that's our time.
Right. Some other responses to that. Not being jealous of another woman, but being jealous of a profession. Any other comments on that?
I can't say that I really feel jealous about his profession. I think he's so happy to do it that I just always wanted to support him in it. Mm-hmm. I know that he came home and said recently that there was like a lot of overtime being offered, and I was like, no, like it's not worth it. And I appreciate, because he usually, like, if he has to make a decision about something like that, like, he'll come to me, he'll ask me how I feel about it. And that's really helpful, because I think maybe if he was taking a bunch of overtime, he wasn't asking me how I felt about it, then maybe I would have felt a little bit jealous. But just being his role as a firefighter, he doesn't have as much responsibility, so we're not at that point yet, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard because and I have to be honest, and my husband knows, before we had the baby, when he would go to work, that was my jam. That was my time. Like, I was like, okay, it's cereal for dinner. It's PJs as soon as I get home. It's whatever shows I want to watch on TV, or if I want to sit outside in the yard, all, whatever it is I wanted to do. And I think in the same respect for him, when I, working, 9 to 5, there's days that he had off, where I wasn't home, where he could, decompress if he needed to. And Jason has always worked at busy stations. And so for him, that was also his downtime, where he didn't have somebody in his space. And I think now that we have a baby and we're working from home, we don't have that separation of just like the time apart, which I think for us in our relationship has always been really meaningful for us. And I think that for me, and I know for him, now that we like just having children just adds another complication of now you're gone, like a third of the time and you're not home. I know that that's really tough and it's hard on me. It's very hard to have a newborn and be alone. And I didn't anticipate in this world and, when we having a baby that I wouldn't be able to invite our friends over, and I wouldn't be able to have my parents over right now or his parents over. And that has been really difficult. And, I get really emotional about it because it's been really hard. And I have struggled with that and I've openly struggled with trying to figure out a better balance because it's very difficult to feel alone and then for knowing that he feels that way and he's missing out, because the days are so precious when they're, when they're little and that time is so little and it goes by so quickly. And so I know that we've had that conversation and just trying to figure out how to fix that gap, and how to like manage that. And some of it just is what it is. And this is, when Greg said new normal, that really is something that we talk a lot about with burn injuries. And so it's just, I think to have it connected in this conversation is just, that's really interesting for me too, just to hear it here because it really is a new normal. But for me, it's been really difficult. And this season of life has been hard to try to figure out a better balance for both of us and how just can we, like mentally and emotionally be in a good place. But yeah, that part of it has been really hard for me personally. And trying to figure out how do you work through that? And I think that although I knew I was marrying a firefighter, I don't think I had any idea of the amount of work and commitment that it takes. And I appreciate that so much, but it is really hard, and it's something that I think even though I'm not that old, but the older that you get, you kind of look at time and how you spend your time and where the time goes. And so I think that it for sure is something that I didn't anticipate, how much him being a firefighter was going to kind of permeate our life and our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Whether on shift or off shift, always a firefighter, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I know now that you guys have been doing it a lot longer than Mackenzie and Jason. What have you learned over the years of doing this? Even though now we're in a place where you gotta relearn everything, it seems, because it's just so different.
Right.
Mackenzie said.
Right. Well, we're growing up with a dad as a firefighter. I was already pretty much ready for what being a wife of a fireman would bring. It is about, once you're married, though, it is different. It's your husband. It is a balance between being a little jealous, but then again, a little proud. There's a lot that you can say about being a spouse. You're proud of your husband. You're proud of for the dedication. You're proud about everything that they do on a daily basis to help other people. The whole COVID thing, though, has brought on so many different feelings for, like Mackenzie. I feel for her so badly because I know it's going to be hard. It was going to be hard regardless. This just doubled her hard. And there's nothing she can do about it. There's nothing that I can do or you can do or anyone can do to make her circumstances any better. Tim and I happened to be at a point when our kids were small, we weren't dealing with this, but we did make a conscious effort raising our children to do without a lot of monetary things and a lot of really nice things to spend time with our kids. So we value every minute that he is home. Every second that he is off from work is our time. It's the time that we spend together as a family, and he gets to spend with his kids in a safe environment. But the COVID the new normal is something we're all having to work with. We're trying to find our new normal. We don't have our vacations. We can't just run off and go somewhere for the weekend to decompress. We're trying to find ways to decompress as a family because the kids are as worried as we are. Mackenzie's baby's not, she's not different yet. But a 17-year-old and an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old know that dad is putting his life on the line every single time he leaves the house. But then you have to find a way to let them know that dad's okay. Dad will be fine. Dad will be safe. And if he's not, we will figure out a way to deal with it. There's no other way, but it is a balance between jealous and very, very proud. I'm proud of all these men that put their lives on the line.
And talking about the kids and communicating that, and not just communicating with the kids, but with your spouses as well. And I know Mackenzie Hensley is a little bitty right now, but Natalie, your girls are about the same age as your kids, Andrea. And what are those conversations like? And do you express the fear that you're feeling or the struggle that you're going through? Do you share that with your kids, or do you have to be strong for them?
I try not to cause too much fear in my kids. We talked about the virus. I showed them a video so they could understand what was going on, why it's important for them to wash their hands, keep distance, why we have to stay home. You're not at school. They're really enjoying the time at home. And a part of me is enjoying it because I get to spend a little bit more time with them, but I hate the circumstances. But I don't like to put my fear on them. I've been trying to prevent that. So I try to avoid like having the news on, because we went to go look up Corona something and it talks about deaths, and I don't want them worried about that. And we did talk about the things that their dad does in order to try to stay safe, in terms of like how he has to wear a mask. They wear like double gloves. They have different, at the fire department now, they have to wear the mask the whole time they're in the station. So just different things that they're doing to stay safe. They're aware of that. But I don't really tell them how my fears.
So where do you go with that? Where do you, if you're not sharing it with you, where do you go with how you feel? You know, where do you, and not so much going a place, and we talk about this a lot, not expressing how I feel so that you can tell me something to make me feel better, but just so that just to regurgitate it so that my voice is heard. Where do you go with that? Because you're taking care of your spouses and you're taking care of your kids. Where do you fit in to that?
I actually talked to a cousin. It was one night where it was just random. A friend of mine and his cousin, none of us could sleep. And somebody had sent me a text, a Apple News about the estimate number of deaths that were going to occur in the US. And it was right before I was supposed to go to sleep. And I couldn't sleep that night. And he was supposed to go to work in the morning. And so I ended up, one of my friends texted me and she's like, she's going to do a fast, no social media, no news, and we're not going to eat until 6 p.m. that day. She's like, who's with me? And she sent it at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we all called each other and found out that we all had this anxiety. And I've been talking to them about it. And I've also been talking to Ron about it. Because he wasn't really telling me about like the calls that he was going on, and it was just causing me anxiety, not knowing. Yeah.
Okay. And Greg, you're people talk about spouses of firefighters, you tend to think it's female, just what people think, because firefighters are always guys, right? And I just so appreciate you being willing to be on here to give a little bit of a different perspective. And if you're this big, strong man of the house, where do you go with your stuff? Who do you vent to, and how do you handle that, if you do?
Well, Tony and I have lots of conversations, and plus I talk to my sisters and brothers throughout the week. And we talk to all 3 of our grown kids. We video chat with them 2 or 3 times during the week. And, about 2 weeks ago, and this family does a lot of gatherings, and we go to Tony's mother's house every other week, and it's probably 35, 40 people. And so we are missing that. 2 weeks ago, we all got in cars and rode by her house like a parade with signs out saying, "We miss you and we love you," because we just so used to going over there and being over there. I have grandkids. They call the day and say, "I want to go to somebody else's house," because they're tired of being in their own house. But I'm just constantly talking to my kids, my wife, my sisters and brothers, to just keep myself sane and try to wean myself off of watching news all day, because that's really tough. And watching these numbers just continue to escalate is tough. And I just look forward to the day when they start declining, escalating. I want to get a vaccine where we all can feel like, okay, now we can breathe again and go back to what our lives used to be. So, I just find solace. Every Sunday we do a virtual church. We went to a church every Sunday. So every Sunday we get up at 9 o'clock and do virtual church. So we're trying to keep in some of the same routines that we had before. And it's difficult being in the house. And I tease my wife because I say, this is almost like when I was in the Navy out at sea on the ship, because I'm stuck in one place.
Right. And you talk about church. Let's talk a little bit about spirituality, for whoever that applies to on this call, because it's interesting when challenges occur in life and we get scared or we feel lost, that and I'm not impressing my beliefs on anyone. I know what I believe and I respect what other people believe. And I know for me, in my journey, I turned away from God. I was raised in the church, and I knew and heard the pastor talking about faith and but it didn't apply to me. It applied to those old people who were coming in church on a walker or on a cane. That had nothing to do with me. My brothers and sisters and I, we were trying to divvy up our money to put half in the basket, and the other half we were going to go to the store. So I knew about it. And when I got burned as a kid, it was so different than what I had been taught, and it was the first time in my young life that my faith had been challenged. And I have to admit, because I think this is an opportunity to be honest and candid, I didn't handle it very well. The very foundation of my faith was shaken. And I was raised to believe we serve a fair and just God, and that's who we serve, and he doesn't make mistakes. And if he didn't make mistakes, that meant he did this to me on purpose. And I wanted so much to believe that this was an accident, because I was a good kid. My head was rather large and I was a little lazy, but I was a good kid. And I could not understand, if there really was a God, that he would allow this to happen to me. And I went for years denying the existence of God. There is no God. He could not exist. But every day I was cursing God. And as I got older and wiser, I can look back and I realized that just the fact that I was cursing God was really acknowledging that he existed. And God knew my heart, even though I didn't understand it. And I did turn back to God. And I did it as a last resort. And I'm very honest. I tried everything else and nothing else worked. And that's when I turned back to God. And God was right there. He was as close as he always was. And it's the thing that really helped me move through the challenges I was having. And I really began to lean on my faith and understand how important the role faith played in my life, and that faith is carrying me through this pandemic. It really is. And I just would like us to talk a little bit about this. How has this pandemic, how has having spouses going out, facing it every day, how has that impacted your faith or your spirituality, if you will? Or not?
It's made mine stronger, to be honest with you. I think you have to have some form of faith to be able to send your husband out and know that they're dealing with this on a daily basis. I know it's made our family faith-wise stronger. We are doing more watching church services together, where we normally go to church and the kids would go one way and we go another way. This is a time for us to sit as a family and really delve deep into the word and have a pastor really speak to us as a family. And it is, a lot of the pastors are speaking a lot on faith and on getting through this pandemic. And I think it's helped us and made all of us stronger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, Dennis, it's funny, you and I had a conversation yesterday about how part of one of the challenges in this situation with this pandemic is all the distractions have kind of been stripped away a little bit, like how you can busy yourself with stuff and not have to have some of those deep thoughts and deep conversations just in your own mind and own thoughts. And so I think for me, it's really, for my faith personally, it's made me kind of dive deep into some questions about, well, why do bad things happen? And I think that seems I think it seems very childlike, but I think for me, it's really been an investigation of faith and just kind of deepening my roots that life does deal you unfair cards at times, and like, why is it that this would happen? And so I think for me personally, it's been encouraging, as weird as that sounds, to really dive into that and explore that for myself. Because I think it's easy to get in a routine of, you know, like, oh, everything's whatever, you know, like even with my husband going to work, oh, it's all good, it's all fine, everything's cool, you come home, we're good, not a big deal, you know. And I think this has reminded me of how fragile things are, and that's how life always is. But it's easy to lull yourself and have the blessing and privilege of feeling lulled into life being okay. I had a family member who had to go into the hospital during all of this, and we couldn't go visit him. We couldn't, you know, just none of it. And he ended up getting moved to the COVID floor because there was a fever they couldn't figure out. And so just all of the worry and fear about what could be. And I think for me personally, that's a very slippery road to go down. And like Andrea, I spent quite a few nights during all of that laying awake. What if what's going to happen to him? What if this happens? What if I can't, you know, what if we can't have, you know, like, and I went down that road of what ifs. And then I think for me, faith is just a grounding place to say, no matter the what if, like, you know, the truth is there, and you know that there's a place you can always stand on. And we've had a lot of family conversations with my family, with that family member, about even if we'll be okay, even if that's the case, God has always been faithful, and why would he not be faithful now? And so I think for me personally, and especially with my husband going to work, that is a grounding thing for me, to look back on my life and say, I've never been left then why now? And especially, I think having this, you know, having our newborn has just put a whole other perspective on the lack of control that you have and the perception of control. And now there's this tiny human who you're supposed to keep alive all the time, and you don't know what you're doing at any given point, but just guessing. And I think that's also an exercise in faith as well. And so for me, I've been grateful for it, but it's been very, you know, it's difficult to be faced with those types of questions that are very real, and have to get tested out and kind of lived through. You can't just glaze over it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I feel like my faith isn't as strong as what it once was at one point in my life. I don't know if just different life events or things of that nature had an effect on it. I can still say that I pray with the kids at night, every night before they go to bed. We say a prayer for their dad, to keep him safe. We're thanking him for our good health, for our family. But I can't say that I've been relying on my faith how I used to. There's a song, it's Kiki Sheard, and it's called Secret Place. And that's my song. Like, when I start to get stressed out, if they hear me in the shower singing that, and it's basically about, like, they say this world sometimes is cruel and cold, but that God can take them to a secret place and take them away from, you know, the pain that the world has. And so, but I can't say that I've been very heavy in my faith lately.
Mm-hmm. And I so appreciate your honesty with that, because when people, particularly believers, can be so judgmental. Value in us having this conversation is just being who we are, and how we feel is how we feel, and just being allowed to scream and say I don't like it, you know. And I think sometimes in some of the conversations I've had with other spouses of firefighters or first responders, there's this feeling that if I'm married to someone that's going out there in the world facing this every day, how dare I not be strong? You know, what do I really have to complain about? I don't have to go out there. And that just seems so, I mean, if it works, but it just seems so unhealthy to me. And I won't say what works and what doesn't work for people. And based on my own experience, it took me 25 years to say out loud, I didn't like getting burned as a child. And I didn't know I could say it for a long time, because I was more concerned with if I said that, or if people really knew how I felt, it was going to make them sad. So I've got to be strong, and I've got to be okay for everyone who loves me. And it was so discounting of how I felt. And it took 25 years to say out loud, I didn't like what happened. And believe me, it didn't matter that it was 25 years later. It was so incredibly painful when I said those words, because the words were so heavy, because I had been carrying that in me for all that time. And it was so unnecessary, but I didn't know. You know, you do the best you can. And I was in survival mode for so long. And it being painful, it was very cathartic as well, because that's when a lot of my healing began, when I just acknowledged that this sucks. You know, this really sucks. You know, my childhood ended. I didn't play baseball anymore. This sucked. And it was okay to say it, you know, and I just wonder how many people are going through this pandemic feeling like they have to be strong, or how many people are going through this pandemic whenever someone vents to them, they feel obligated to say the right thing. You know, if you come to me telling me you're struggling with something, if I'm trying to figure out what to say to you, then I'm not totally listening to you, because I'm trying to think, what do I need to say? And the reality is, how we feel is how we feel. You know, there's no right or wrong in how you feel. And sometimes the pain we carry and the challenges we have are for us. And those are our challenges, and that's our pain to carry, not for someone to take it away. And this virus, how it's called social distancing, how it's causing people to stay in. There are so many parallels to what I went through as a child, because I look different. There was a lot of social distancing in my life. You know, the stay-at-home order. I hid in the house for 2 years because I was a young kid that looked different, you know, and not only back then it didn't look different. I was a young kid that was ugly. That's what it was. It wasn't look different. That was too nice a word. And just how people didn't know how to communicate to me, or they would say things to me, well, I know how you feel. It's going to be all right. It's not as bad as you think. And you're such an inspiration. It was like, well, hell, I didn't feel like an inspiration. That's not what you guys are seeing something different than what I'm seeing, but I'm going to smile and allow those opinions to dictate my path. And if there had been opportunities when I was a child to either be on a call like this or listen in to people, man, it would have been tremendously helpful to me, you know, and I'm hoping that there's somebody listening, that there's something that's resonating with them. You know, like I said at the outset, you know, we're not here to fix anyone, but we're just here to share any encouragement or inspiration that people can glean from this conversation. And we're rolling near the end of our hour, but I want to ask each of you a couple of questions. How you doing? today? How you doing through this thing? And that's just, it sounds like a simple question, but I can understand it can be very difficult too. But how are you doing, Natalie?
I'm doing the best I can. Every day's different. Every day brings new challenges. With 3 kids at home, every day is different, but I do the best I can. You get advice from people. You can't always use that advice. It's great that people care enough about you to give you advice. But unless they're in your shoes and know your circumstances, you just have to do the best you can. But it does help to reach out for support and to talk, at least talk to people, even if it's just venting, just to call someone on the phone and say, hey, listen, I just need 5 minutes. Just let me get it off my chest and I'm done. And that makes your day go, it can make your day go better. It makes my day go better just to be able to vent and know that I am doing the best that I can, just as my husband is doing the very best that he can to keep us safe, keep us healthy. I do the same for him, and it works really good for us that way. We're just doing the best we can.
Okay. Greg, how you doing?
Well, Dennis, here in our house, we're doing well. I'm doing well. I'm just being here trying to be very supportive of my wife. We're very thankful here because we know a lot of people staying home. They don't have their pay and all of that, and we have none of those issues here. So we're very, very thankful. Our faith has not changed here. We believe in God. I do more listening now than I've ever done. I've gotten better as a listener. It took me a long time to realize that God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means I should be listening twice as much as I'm talking. I just love that I was invited in this to give a different perspective, being the husband, being the man. And I'm going to tell my fellow firefighter spouses, the female firefighters always want to hear everybody say firefighter, because it's not just firemen. And my wife gets on me, but I'll correct people if they say that. But I just appreciate that I had an opportunity to share in this panel, and I hopefully get a chance to do something like this again. I hope some people heard something that touched them, changed them, can help them along the way. And just God bless all of you. Stay safe. Don't take no unnecessary risks. Stay in your house. We have all been forced to do some, just self-reflection, because we've been forced to sit down and stay in our own homes. And that, as tough as that is, some of us need it. Some of us need it. So I just appreciate it again, and look forward to the next time. If you call on me, I will definitely do it again.
My man. Andrea, how you doing today?
Doing good. Before it started, I was talking a little bit about, I have 2 kids, they're 7 and 8. And so the whole homeschooling and working remotely it's been a bit of a challenge trying to juggle everything, especially on days when he's not home. But I am grateful that I have a job. I've been working out a lot. Like, there's been a ton of people posting free Zoom sessions online, and so I've been getting it in. That's been helping a lot too with me managing stress. And then, like, today I had the kids doing an art project. So I'm just trying to keep busy, keep positive. I'm a homebody, so this isn't killing me. But I've also enjoyed this experience with talking with you guys. I think the whole pandemic has caused me to really think about, like, my life, what I want to do, because tomorrow, it's not promised, but it seemed more so before all this happened. And so you start to think about the future a lot more, and what have I done and what more could I do. But I've enjoyed this conversation.
Okay, great. Mackenzie, McMom.
McMom, I think I'll say I'm hopefully struggling. I think what Natalie said really resonates with me, that I'm doing the best I can. And I think that that's such a positive perspective that I want to adopt for myself, because I think it can feel like you're not accomplishing anything. We talked a lot about, like, trying to find something meaningful to contribute and do can feel really difficult right now. And the weight of all that's happening can feel super heavy. And so I think I'm hopefully struggling. Like, that's what I'll say. I'm hopeful and I'm also struggling. That's as honest as I can be. I'm grateful to have a job. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful to have work that's meaningful through the foundation and feel connected with people. And I think that I'm missing, I miss everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, and I can so appreciate everyone being candid, because that's really what we call virtual conversations are really about, just being candid, because we're not going to fix the virus on this call. We're not, we're not going to come up with some new invention that would allow people to be a little bit more interactive now. But what we can do is share who we are. And I don't think there's no pandemic or there's no global crisis that can keep us from being connected, because we are part of the human family. We are part of, I think what's been interesting about this virus is that it's really made it very clear that we live in a global community. It's not about different countries. It's not about financial status. It's not about what color we are, how old we are, whether we're male or female. And this pandemic, we're all in this together. There's not a real expensive vaccine that some people can get and some people can't. This is impacting everyone in the same way. That it's made things, it's leveled the playing field, if you will, in a manner of speaking, because we're all are impacted by the same thing. It doesn't matter if I'm in a little small apartment here, or Greg's in that big house, or Andrea's down there near the beach that she can't go to. It does not matter. We're all impacted the same way. And I think, Andrea, you said it, how things used to be. There was always gonna be tomorrow. Now we're not so sure about that. And I would like for you guys to take an opportunity of what do you think the new normal is going to look like? We know what it was yesterday. We know what it used to be. Now we're in this pandemic, and I am looking beyond this. I refuse to be stuck right here with what's happening right here, because the amazing thing about this, I've been in the house for so long, and the sun has risen every morning. It has, the breezes continue to blow, and I continue to love life and all that it brings with it. So that's what I'm looking at, that maybe people will feel that the sun is shining a little bit brighter when we get through this. Maybe people would take time to say hello and smile a little bit more once we're through this. And so I know I don't have to tap my heels together 3 times to be in the Wizard of Oz, because it can be what we want it to be. And I know things can get rough sometimes, but it's so important to remain positive and optimistic, because it's a choice. It really is a choice. And I know, Mackenzie, you've said time and time again, I can find a silver lining in the darkest of storm cloud. And there's some truth to that. If you ask me, I tell you I'm excellent and getting better all the time. And that used to be a coping mechanism for me, but then it became my life. It became my mantra that I live by every day, every minute. And I would just like you guys to take a couple of minutes to just, what do you see? Because I wanted to end on a positive note. What do you see after this pandemic is done? What does that new normal look like?
I'll start since I've cried the most. I think that I would like to blame that a little bit on some postpartum hormones, but I'm a crier anyway. So that's, if you know me, you know that I'll cry at a Publix commercial with puppies on it. So that's not a surprise. But I think for me, what I hope it brings out, and what I've seen already, is I think that we just as a society and people have forgotten that we need each other. I think it's so easy behind a screen and to feel so distanced from things. that I hope that what we remember is that we need each other, because I cannot wait to just hug people. And I told Dennis this, I try to take the baby on a walk every day just so we both can get out of the house no matter what. And I was talking to people in my neighborhood I don't even know, but I was like, had to reel myself in from being like, well, what'd y'all have for dinner? What you been doing at your house? And where do you live? And can I walk by and say, like, as silly as that sounds, but it's just like you just soak in those moments more, you know. And even just being on this call, like this hour has just gone by so quickly, and it has just been so enjoyable to just be with people. And I think it's easy to get in your own mind, in your own space, and forget that we need each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope it will make us more kind, more considerate. You know, all the stories of people sacrificing for other people, Greg's story about driving by with signs, we would have never taken the time to do that before. It would have been, I don't have the time to do that, I'm too busy, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't even stop to think about that. And so I think what I hope and what I know has impacted me and will be is just really savoring spending time together and putting a value on that more
Mm-hmm.
than other things.
Okay, great.
I just think at the end of this, I think people are just going to be more appreciative to one another. We're going to realize through this pandemic that we are all of one race, and that's the human race. Mm-hmm. And that is what it's done to the whole world, not just America. Mm-hmm. And I just think that this is going to be one of those wake-up calls where people are going to be better with one another. They're going to be kinder. That doesn't mean we're going to have no more crime in the world, no more bad, but I think we're going to have less of it, because we know we're one pandemic away from humans could possibly being wiped off the face of this earth. And I think people will learn from this. And I just think that people will be better with one another when this is over. Mm-hmm. And I hope that sooner than later. I don't know when this vaccination is coming, but hopefully sooner. I mean, sooner than later. And if we can get back to what we know, what we knew is normal before. But I think at the end of this, the race, people will be better. Human race. We will.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Well, I hope we see everyone appreciate our essential workers the way we're appreciating them now. Even the people that are in the grocery stores that are putting our groceries on our shelves. We underappreciate the people that are the most valuable. And the main thing I want to be able to hug my family and hug Mackenzie's baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Definitely appreciation of the essential workers, teachers, parents teaching at home. It's not that easy. I think it would have been a little bit easier if I wasn't working as well, but just really appreciating our teachers, our first responders, the people on the front line, and then also just our family. Like, you know, I've been worried about, you know, like aunties, my dad, my parents, like just, you know, making sure that they're a priority. Making sure I've been calling, checking a lot more often than I usually do. So that's something that I plan on continuing after this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, it is. It's got us in a place. That's for sure. And on behalf of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation, we so appreciate you guys taking the time. And for us, you know, we've had to cancel a lot of programming, and we're just trying to be creative in how we can create touch points. And when we talk about that, we're not just talking about burn survivors, we're talking about people, because that's what this is about. And for you guys to take the time to do this, it means a lot to the foundation. But the people who we impact most in this life are the people we'll never know. And I would like to believe that someone was impacted by what you had to share tonight, that somebody, something that was said here resonated. You know, there were a couple of things that were said that resonated with me, you know, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And when I say that I love you, I mean that. You know, Greg, I appreciate you, Mackenzie, Andrea, Natalie, just on behalf of the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation. And we want to thank all the people who logged in. I don't know what those numbers are, but I strongly believe that the people who logged in and listened are the people who were supposed to be on the call listening. And this has been recorded, and it'll be uploaded on our Facebook page for those who didn't get a chance to hear it, or for those out there who want to hear it again, or if you guys have people that you want to shoot the link out to, it'll be posted on our website. And again, on behalf of the foundation, but for me personally, thank you so very much for being on this call, but thank you so very much for supporting those firefighters who are out there making a difference in people's lives. And I can't tell you thank you enough, because I am the fruits of the labor of what your spouses do. I sit here, I breathe, I live, and I try to pay it forward. And I think that's the greatest way I can show appreciation, is that I extend myself to help people the way your spouses have extended themselves to help me. So when you're feeling a little challenged and maybe not feeling real good about what they do, just know that they do make a difference. And I can say that with all confidence, because they made a difference in my life. And with that, we'll let you get back to your isolated environments. And thank you guys so very much. And we'll probably be tapping you guys again for a future conversation. All right. So thank you guys, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you. Have a great night. Stay safe.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.